Welcome back, subscribers. This is a venting a little bit here. So it's a energy conspiracy theory. All right, and this is not a free energy. That has nothing to do with that. I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about my background. One of them, because of me contracting, that's interrelated to a way that you can do something on your own that is a significant increase in efficiency of wherever you're living. Now, if you're renting, I'm going to talk about some things that you can do renting wise and what they're doing in Europe. Okay. And I've learned of this from a number of different facets. And then you could ask yourself, is it a conspiracy? It's more business. It is energy cartels and business. And is it conspiratorial? I think, and this is where I talk a lot about this, is that business in general, if you have more than one person, it's a conspiracy. So if you're conspiring with another person to do something to create a business, basically to have a hustle, not like you're hustling somebody, but it's like that's how you're making your money. Then that would technically be that. The difference is it's not a theory. I'm going to prove that, yeah, absolutely, this is what they're doing to make money. Okay, they're energy cartels. So the one we have here in North Carolina is Duke Energy. My background, this goes back 25 years. We had a secondary business that was a spray foam business. And once I got into the spray foam business, um, I started doing these load calculations on houses. And it was basically, it takes each room of the house, the orientation of the house, north, south, east, west, how much heating and cooling load each room gets. So it would size the ductwork relative to whatever is needed to keep the room at whatever you need, 70 degrees. I could set it to whatever design parameter you wanted. 68 degrees, you wanted to hang meat in there, whatever, doesn't matter to me. They would just tell me, and I would do it and design it that way. Now, I wasn't you know, uh, I didn't get an engineering degree on it. I learned from a couple of guys that did have engineering degrees, actually doctors that did, believe it or not, like fluid dynamics and science, things like that. And once they showed me how to use a specific software, and I got trained on it. It was actually, I learned because it was an emergency situation I had to do for a builder. And we had to do this thing. It's called a manual J. It's a load calculation. It had the software to do it. And with spray foam, the houses are really freaking tight. So there's parameters that I could change on the fly to really model how efficient the homes were. And they're like 50% more efficient than standard houses. So it has to be right, because when you're reducing 50% load of heating and cooling in a house, it's either not going to cool or it's not going to heat. There isn't going to be enough to go around. So there's a problem. So, and all that stuff gets installed on the front end. So when you build a house, all that stuff goes in before you put sheetrock on the walls and finish everything. So it's got to be right. The size of the ducts, like if you went from just imagine, it's either a 16-inch duct on a regular standard house to an 8-inch duct, and it can only push so much air. So at any rate, it needed engineering. So originally we had plans that were stamped and things like that, but then they just got bogged down, didn't have time, and they're like, look, hey, it's really easy. Just get this software. I'll walk you through it, and you can reverse engineer it. And that's what we did. And because I got to be friends with these guys, and I needed it on a weekend, so I did it, learned it, and so on. But then as I started getting more into this, not just spray foam, but energy efficiency and design work, I started rubbing elbows with people that were in solar and geothermal and all these things out there. And there's always been this talk about like free energy and energy efficiency and creating like this Tesla tech and all this other business. And I've told people, I'm like, just set up a system where you don't need as much. That's really the game right there. If you don't need as much electricity, then stop worrying about making it so it's free. Make it so that it's more efficient. And there's plenty of things out there that you can learn about that you can do on your own property. It could be an apartment, a house, etc., that you can do very cheap. Like buy a couple of tubes of caulk, and you're going to have just air seal something. And when we first got into this, a guy that was just a one-man band, and the company's called Southern Energy Management. And Bob Kingery was one dude, And I called them. I was like, hey, I want to have a meeting. We want to be able to like kind of use each other's services. We'll do the spray foam, the general contracting, the spray foam, the design work. And then we want you to Energy Star rate these houses. So anyway, I was like knee deep in this shit. All right. I was like one of the authorities in the whole state of North Carolina about this. And particularly with this design work with foam, I was the only gig in town. So it became like a very highly prized part of our business model. And I used it, to our advantage for sure. Again, but what I was learning was all these different facets I'd be running into, learning about how these cartels work. Basically, that, for example, like geothermal is super, super efficient, but the systems were costing $40,000 to put a heating and air conditioning system on your house. And we would have these packages that somebody wants spray foam, geothermal, like they throw everything at it, and it was pointless. And I would tell people, just be honest with them, be like, well, if you do spray foam, you don't really need geothermal. And if you do geothermal, you don't really need spray foam. So I'm like, you should just pick one way or the other. I said, whatever you want to go with. I said, it doesn't really matter because you hit this ROI. And that's why like my background in trading and in business really came into play pretty hard because people that had the money to pay for these more expensive energy efficient homes and things, you just tell them like, hey, why would you put all this money into it? You're never going to get the money out of it. You're not saving any trees. You're not of anything. You're not getting any more bang for the buck. So at any rate, I also started rubbing elbows with, it used to be Progress Energy. Then Duke bought them out. And so Duke Energy, and then finding out and dealing with people that were inside of the system and basically how it worked, like inside the cartel. And I found that within solar that you found out that you could game the system. You could put solar panels on your house, sell the electricity back to Duke or Progress Energy, and they would give you a paycheck. It was like highly incentivized. This is 20 some years ago. Now it's that, well, we'll take your energy. If the house needs 15 kW of energy, then that's all the panels you can get on your house. We're going to make your energy bill a lot smaller, like you maybe pay $20 a month. And then if there's any surplus energy during peak time, we're going to pay you under wholesale cost for the electricity that you generate. So now we're at the point where energy costs have gone up 50%. And we're looking at it actually like having like a 10 to 15 year payback ROI on the solar panels. So I've been thinking, I was like, maybe it's time to do solar. I've been kind of holding back because my house is so efficient. It just never made any sense to do it. Unless I put a ton of panels on my house and did like, I don't know, Bitcoin mining or something that I could actually like keep the energy for myself and not put it on the grid for cheap. I was like, I'm going to keep it myself. If I'm going to put all this money into it, I could keep that energy production off grid, and then have mining rigs and mine crypto, and then sell the crypto and make money that way. All right, because my house it just sets up perfect. I could put the original estimate that I had was I could put 90 panels. I've got a pretty decent sized house. 90 panels on this property, facing south. I mean, no trees, just wide open. And yes, it gets hot here, so yeah, my cooling load is higher. So I was looking like I want to have the whole thing. I want to keep the whole thing. And Duke's like, well, if I get into the grid, if I connect to the grid, then I have to go by their terms. You can't put on 90 panels, Danny. You could put on like 40, or whatever, 35 or something like that total. And you're going to be selling the shit back to us at wholesale price. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's silly. That doesn't make any sense. Like if I'm looking at it as a business, if I'm going to do it, that's like, if I can farm and do 100 acres, why would I do 20 acres? You know what I'm saying? Like just do the whole thing. So anyway, every way I went with the solar, it was some other roadblock and them trying to basically take over and commandeer, like the property. Like they're like, they don't want only but so much energy. They're crying that they want renewables, but the problem is they don't have any storage. They don't have the battery systems. There's no electricity needs to be generated at the time of the consumption. And the main consumption happens after 4 o'clock, pretty much when everybody goes home. They crank up their AC. They're cooking, they're cleaning, they're doing all these things. This is Monday through Friday. That's when the big energy load is. And so at any rate, so storage capacity is a big problem, and they know this. So they don't really have a workaround. saw a video like months ago, and I've actually thought about this on my own, and because of a property that we worked on, and the property was built, had a chimney, a center chimney, and a lot of masonry on this house, and it was like a coolant. It basically created a coolant chamber or location that was inside the middle of the middle of the house. And so it had a chimney in the middle, but it was a huge thermal mass, and it was designed this way purposely because um, the air that would go inside the crawl space would race up the chimney for cooling, and race up the chimney, and then draw out like an internal, like a heat sink in the middle of it. So it's inverted from from heating up a chimney with fire. So instead of it getting hot, it's actually cool, and it's using the natural convective cooling mechanism from the crawl space out the roof. And we were doing some work, and I knew the builder, and he was telling me about the design, and and they put all this time and effort into it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm like, well, that's a lot of money to have to put in here for passive, uh, um, energy evacuation, cooling, passive cooling, because it was a ton of masonry. It was like he said, yeah, cost wise, it doesn't really, you don't really get much bang for your buck. And I see a video a while back about using ice as a battery. So basically, this is the way the system works. Because the batteries, the solar, like the Tesla walls, the batteries, and all this other, it's shit. It's absolute fucking garbage. I don't give a shit who's out there that says that these systems are renewable resource energy systems. The battery solar systems, electricity storage capacity systems are absolute freaking garbage. All right, and the reason is because they don't last. All right, they have to have modules that regulate the amount of electricity that goes into those batteries. The batteries they're lithium-ion batteries, which are super freaking expensive. Danny, they're going to come down in price so more people use them. Okay, well, maybe that's the case, but 10, 15 years down the road, they lose their storage capacity. And then it's not like an automobile where you can just go trade in your Tesla and go get another one. All right. You're going to have this shit on your house or your commercial building or whatever else. And then they're going to be like, well, sure, we'll take it off your hands. It's going to be this much money to go have it recycled. All right. So it is an absolute boon, and nobody's really talking about it because it's just getting going. All right. The few people that actually have batteries, and the way that they did this originally in the energy system for residential or light commercial was, oh, just put it back in the grid. You sell it back in the grid, and it's like, we're all in it together. We're all like sharing the energy, kumbaya crap. But then you start coming to the realization, you're like, well, no, this is my energy. I'm generating this. I want to have this for myself. And they're like, well, you can either have on grid or you combine and it's all kumbaya, or it's off grid. And you can't have an on grid and off grid system. They won't allow it to happen. You can't do it. It's either one or the other. Or you could have a hybrid where whatever circuits are in your house could be off grid, and then that's basically what I'm going to do. And again, they don't have some police force that's out there. So I get to thinking, I was like, you need a better battery system, and thermal mass is a fantastic battery. So I saw this video, and they're like, just use ice. All right, you can run a freezer, like a chest freezer, fill it full of water with there's piping that's inside of it. So you're creating that runs during peak hours. So you have peak hours runs for like maybe 6 hours a day. It's some peak summertime for solar. That runs the compressor that freezes the water that's inside of the freezer. And once it's frozen, a block of ice, that's the battery. So it's a thermal battery. Okay. So imagine this. So imagine a chest freezer. So let's say this represents the chest freezer. So inside of it, you fill it full of water. You connect it to a solar panel. Solar panel runs and charges, but runs this for 6 hours, freezes the water inside of it, which creates a thermal energy storage, which is a battery. No power wall, no, it's water. There's no harmful anything to the environment. It's water, and it's super efficient. So you freeze it, but inside of the block you put you have piping. Okay, so you have like what's called as a thermal heat sink. So you have piping that's inside of the ice chunk, and then you have an inlet and an outlet pipe. And inside of that pipe is antifreeze, and you can get it's polyglycol, I think is what it is. It's not polyethyl or so there's two different kinds. So you want to get the version that is biodegradable and non-harmful to humans. Ethanol glycol is poisonous. And I think it's polyglycol. Doesn't matter. You can look it up. Just look up like antifreeze, but have it be environmentally friendly antifreeze, and you'll find it. I think it's doesn't matter. You run that through the lines, and then it goes over into a heat exchanger, a radiator. But in my system, I've already designed this thing in my head. So I started looking into this, and the reason is because my HVAC, we were doing some work on the property, and I clipped my refrigerant line. All the refrigerant drained out of it. It's only a 3.5 ton unit system, but still, it's probably going to be $1,000, probably. We just clipped it, and the whole thing drained out. And it got me thinking. I was like, this refrigerant, what they're doing, this is part of the heating and air conditioning scam world. And I also know this environment really well because of my background in spray foam and doing the design work. And I got to be friends with guys that were HVAC contractors. And the manufacturers have been changing the refrigerant, like every, whatever it is, like decade or something like that, that it's not environmentally, we just figured out it's not environmentally friendly. So you have to run this compressor. Now you have to change this equipment and because of the refrigerant, and they just changed the variants. It's a total scam. And after this all drained out, I was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. Be like, I'm going to set up a secondary system that's an ice system. I'm going to set this thing up and run it so that I'm not relying upon this old system. So the property still technically has an existing system, but I'm not going to run it. All right. And see if I can just, test bed this, because I know that there's other people out there. There's lots of videos and things that people have talked about this, but with my background in design work, I was like, I can do this, and I know I can collect all the data on it. Okay, so we're going to be looking at, obviously airflow, relative humidity in the house, everything that we would do on one of our high efficiency properties. The difference is the refrigerant mechanism is different. All right, so I had Ezra, my AI Claude. Ezra is my Claude. Run some numbers for me and said, hey, this is the freezer I've got. It's a 7 cubic foot freezer. Water, it's going to hold 420 pounds of water. The BTU output of this is over 60,000 BTUs of storage energy in it. It frozen at 0 degrees. And I'm like, this is insane. My house doesn't need 60,000 BTUs to cool it. It needs maybe 20,000, something like that, 15 to 20,000. I haven't looked at the load calc. I know the numbers generally, so I didn't go back and look at it to really to look at the manual J to see what I had. I wanted to see like roughly if it was doable with the unit that I have. And it was just, I bought it years ago, and my daughter had gotten married, and we just had it as a spare, but I had bought it for it was actually my Armageddon freezer. So we had like, meat and stuff like that. It was like a deep freezer that we had, chest freezer, really small one. We ended up using it for my daughter's wedding, because you could turn it to refrigeration, just to refrigerator, not all the way down to freezer temperatures. So, and that worked really good. And then we just have it. And I was like, I could sell it. And I was like, I got it at Costco. It was like a few $100, maybe $300. And I was like, I don't know, I'll do something with it. And anyway, this happens this weekend. And I was like, well, let me run the numbers on this 7 cubic foot freezer to see if it's doable. So I start running the numbers, and I basically have all the stuff. So I run into the solar. Here's the scam. So if I keep it 100% off grid, then your heating and air conditioning load on your property is going to be anywhere from 40 to 60% of the energy consumption of the house. So it depends really on how efficient the property is in general, as to like whenever they kind of roughly guess, what your energy consumption is on the property. So there's an element that happens in heating and air conditioning. And I know this for a fact, that whenever heating and air, the outdoor unit runs for less than 15 minutes, you don't get dehumidification. So I'm talking primarily air conditioning. So if you're not running the system, okay, for more than 15 minutes, you don't get dehumidification. And be like, well, what does that matter? It's blowing cold air. It's great. No, it's stupid. You need to pull the moisture out of the air to drop the relative humidity. And that's what actually makes the house cold. It's not because it's cold air. What it's actually doing is it's creating a refrigerated, the air is really cold. It runs over a cold substrate, which is an exchanger. And then it condensates, and then that water gets discharged and pumped outside. So it's basically like your air conditioner is just really squeezing water out of the air. All right. In order to make that happen, you got to have it run. Typical heating air conditioning systems don't run that way. The standardized systems are just all on or off. They have variable speed systems, but they're very expensive. So standard equipment just runs. And if it just runs, if it doesn't give a shit if it's 70 degrees and it calls for air conditioning, or 110, okay, it's just runs. So basically it's like you start up your car and you put the accelerator to the floor. That's how it works. So you'd be like, well, Daniel, when it's 70 degrees outside, that would mean that it would just come on for a little bit. You would be able to tell. Like if it's running, if your unit runs for 30 minutes, you're in like serious dehumidification zone. If it runs for 5 minutes, it's not about the time. There's a startup ampage and then a run ampage. So that's what you have to be looking at. And you can look at, there's a little tag on the back of your unit, and you can look at it. You'll have like the startup amps might be like 50 amps and the run amps might be 15 or 20, something like that. This is a huge differential. Just let the damn thing run. Just run it. Anyway, I get into this ice thing and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is like a total game changer, because I could run the solar 6 hours, freeze a block of ice, and just run the refrigeration on free energy off Apollo, the sun. Just run it, freeze a block of ice, and then when it's off peak, it doesn't run the compressor anymore on my refrigerator to make the ice. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then to modulate it, I'm going to be using a thermostatic control in a secondary system. When I'm all done with it, I'll probably video it and put it together and show you how I did this. And now this morning, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had the whole thing like laid out in my head there, because I had a couple of questions about some things. And I ran the numbers through Ezra just to kind of give me the standard kind of an idea of where I was going to be at number wise on total BTU storage in that amount of thermal mass. And that's the ticket, guys. So if you've got 50% of your energy bill is your energy, your heating and cooling load, you can at least get rid of the cooling and have it be super efficient. I mean, you could run your house down ultra cold. I mean, hang meat in your house cold, because the temperature that you get out of your refrigeration system, the in the HVAC in general inside of a house is going to be about 18 degrees from outdoor temperature to indoor temperature. All right. Or it's technically 18 degree from whatever is going into the return air grill to blowing out of the supply. So it's an 18 degree temperature differential. But once it gets to a certain temperature outside, like above 95 degrees, you start losing that efficiency significantly. And you're not blowing ultra cold air anymore. So like the coldest you could get if you had 70 degree indoor temperature, it's going to be 50 degrees or so at the vents on the supplies. This thing will blow. I'm going to have to set it so it doesn't freeze. That's why I'm going to have a secondary reservoir that's handling this, because it'll freeze the coil. So I'm going to be running it probably 35 to 40 degree temperature. I might even run it hotter than that. I might run it at closer to 45, 50 degrees. It's just not necessary to run it that cold. If you run it that cold, you'll get sweating on your vents and your flooring and things like that. It's going to be way too cold. So that's one of the elements that I know a lot of people that are getting into doing this, if someone sees a video, have not taken it into account, because you're going to have to manage and modulate the amount of cold refrigerant, whatever is the liquid refrigerant that you're using, that's going to have to be at a more of a happy medium that's closer to the the finished temperature that you want to have inside the house. So if it's 70 degrees, you're going to have to be around 50 to 55 degrees is going to be about what the temperature is. If you run it lower than that, you will get you'll get sweating right around where the register is. Not only the registers, have you ever seen in a bathroom that if you have metal registers, they'll rust out. We were on a property that they had wooden register covers and they rotted out from the inside out. So it's just because there's moisture that's inside of that air, and it's also hitting dew point temperature because it's super, super cold. Just like taking a soda can out of the refrigerator, it'll sweat. So that means your entire house on the inside will be sweating if you're blowing out like 40-degree air. So you can't do that. So anyway, I'm going to design this system. And as I've been working through the energy side of it, I only need about 200 to 300 watts of power to run this. So I only need like one solar panel. Be like, how could that be? Why does it take so much energy to heat and cool the house? Be like, because again, it's a total scam. Whoever came up with this again is part of the air conditioning, / energy cartel. Like they want to be like, oh, get your house more energy efficient. But they don't. And then they give you a system that isn't efficient. And again, in order to be able to do this, the homes are not designed for these types of setup. I can do it on my house because we've got the room to do it. But on a standardized house, it's just as easy just to go put a little unit outside, a compressor outside of the house or building. It's easier. And then it's easier. Again, it's a service call. It's that if something breaks, you got the heating and air conditioning guy that's going to come out, and it creates commerce and business. The system I'm talking about, there's not very many moving parts. As far as longevity goes, it's the refrigerator itself, the freezer those last 15, 20 years. It's pretty much no different than the outdoor units. But the refrigerant that's used, it's using just a very limited amount of it, and you're gaining the efficiency because you're using solar. It's free energy to once you get the system set up. So I'm thinking, I already have a lot of the stuff to set this up. I've got I'm gonna have to probably spend about $600 total for a whole system that will to cool 3,600 square feet of area, and a new heating and air conditioning unit. You're looking at about $15,000. And today I'm getting my system has to get recharged because I nicked the line and I have no refrigerant in it. So I'm guessing $1,000. It might be $1,500. I don't know yet because refrigerant's expensive and it's all out of the system. So I'm already kind of prepared for that, and that's what kind of got me thinking about this in the first place. But there's absolutely this is how like all systems are running. If somebody is inside of a specific system that they know that there's a better way to do it, but the general norm is really inefficient and everybody bitches and moans about it, and then it's like being in an abusive relationship. Okay, so that they come up with these new modeling systems, like say inside of housing, which costs it's a constant cost every single month, and like, well, if they really wanted to be efficient, then they would do it this way. It's just like automobiles. You're trying to tell me Casey, the guy who's got the 100-mile car that he built a diesel that gets 100 miles a gallon. Casey, the car guy, I think it is. Yeah, just to prove that you could do it. And I'm like, well, I know that I can do this with HVAC, and I said I don't have really a lot of cost. So what's why isn't everybody doing it, Danny? Then if it's so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Because there's no business in it. There's no service in it. There's no repetitive service calls. There's no catch. And be like, and that's it? And be like, yeah, because humans don't do things on their own. They unless you're in it and totally fed up finally, then you're like, screw these guys, I'm going to do my own thing. This is my property. If I want to cool my house, if I want to turn it on, however I want to do it, it's my business. If I want to run a fucking windmill behind my house, I'm doing it. Whatever it is, I'm allowed to do that because I don't live in HOAs and covenants and all that crap. So I have the freedom to be able to do that stuff. For something like this, it's like they set you up to fail. It's set up to say like, okay, here's the system. All right, but don't use it because the property is not efficient, or your electric bill is going up by 50%, and we know that it's 100 degrees outside, and you have to cool the property this way because we only give you one option. It's just like you have a gun to your head with, and this is across the board for every. You get into whatever solar, whether it's air conditioning, this is in the plumbing industry, this is in the electrical industry. Everything has every industry. This is in trading. Across the board with every industry. When people get into it and know the ins and outs of it and understand the language formula of this is that whenever you can discover what the cartel's motives are, what is the business angle? And I talk a lot about this, and I'm going to be cutting this off because I'm just rambling because I'm very excited about this. And it's only going to save me it's probably going to save me $200 a month, something like that. It's nothing. It's not really that much. It's just more like I'm not hogtied and having to wait on service. This is something that you just like put together parts and I could just go fix it at Home Depot if there was a problem. Simple. Or if there's no power, I still have air conditioning. Simple, because I could just run it off grid. Simple. That is the single biggest energy consumer that you're going to have on a property is heating and cooling, bar none. All right. Heat, you could obviously have a fireplace, but for cooling, you need a lot of power. And that's the reason why these solar systems are so big that they're putting on houses. The property here was I think $40,000, and 50% of it is a system I'm gonna put together for $600. It doesn't make any sense. There's just, when I start seeing like that much of a discrepancy between like the ROI, what I'm putting in and what I'm getting out of it, and how long it's going to last. So like, why would I put solar panels on a property and then use a heating and air conditioning system that's only going to last 10 or 15 years, and we have to change it because of the freaking refrigerant? So it's like, there isn't a finger to point at only one industry, you see? So it's like, well, are they really not talking to each other? If they really want you to use less electricity, wouldn't they be going back to the heating and air conditioning companies and saying like, hey, we need to come up with a better system? And I just pointed this out to Kate, and I'll leave you this. I said, it's funny. I said, I could see this being a whole nother industry because this combines polyvoltaics, solar, and it combines heating and air conditioning, because you could do it on the heat side as well too with solar hot water. And I said, if you just went back 100 years, let's see, 100 years, there was electricians, plumbers, and heating and air conditioning professionals. There really wasn't a thing. If you went back 120 years, turn of the century, they didn't have them. It wasn't like you could just if they didn't have central plumbing in a house, there's no need for a plumber. If you don't have any electricity in the house, there's no need for wire. There's no electrician. They created these industries, right? Well, you don't need it. You don't need it. So it comes in a convenience and luxury. Heating and air conditioning. When I was a kid, we lived for a year. We lived in High Point, North Carolina. Another year, we lived in South Boston, Virginia. Needed air conditioning. We didn't have it in the north. When I lived up towards Erie, Pennsylvania, and up in that way, the houses up there have no air conditioning. So, but down here in the south, you got to have it. And before the air conditioning, people just suffered. So now it's just common. Everybody has it. And be like, what are you doing? You're going to work just to be cool, to go watch Netflix. And I was like, well, I can do that and not have to pay any money doing it. Be like, why would I want to do that? And didn't have to do all this work and have to put money. I mean, if I look at it for 10 years, if I can save, it's probably more than $200 a month. If I could save about $3,000 a year on my coolant bill, because it would be zero after I do this, yeah, you're looking at, $30,000 to $40,000, in a life expectancy of a unit. And then after that 10 or 15 years, I'm going to have to replace the existing heating and air conditioning unit with another one, which continues to keep going up in price, and pay another $15,000 for another unit, and so on and so on and so on. And then they have to pay maintenance fees to have the guy come out and the technician. Basically, heating and air conditioning is like owning a Mercedes. You have to take it to the dealer. You have to have these guys come out because they don't have this shit. You can't fix it just going to Lowe's and Home Depot. It just doesn't work that way. So when that happens and you get railroaded like that, that's like, wait a minute. There's got to be a better way to do this. So I'm done rambling. I know some people get pissed off at me rambling, but I just get really excited about this, and I'm a doer, so I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna do it. So I'm just putting together the list of things that I need to do to get this thing done, and I'll check back in after this. But yeah, it's there's conspiracies. Every business is some one way or another a conspiracy. Talk to you later. Cheers.